Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC 280 is almost here, and this card is crazy stacked from top to bottom. I cannot wait for UFC 280. And opening up the main card, we have Katlyn Chookagian versus Manon Fiorot, and this is going to be my full breakdown and prediction for this women's flyweight fight. And this is a very important fight. I know a lot of people are kind of trashing it, saying it belongs on the prelims, and I do agree that Bilal Muhammad, Sean Brady is a better fight than this. But this is an amazing women's fight, and it's a very important fight within the division. Whoever wins this fight is arguably the number one contender, especially if it's Fiorot. I know technically, you look at the rankings, Katlyn Chookagian is already ranked number one, but she's already had a shot at Valentina Shevchenko. So I think definitely if Fiorot wins this fight, she puts herself in position to challenge Valentina Shevchenko for the flyweight title. And for Chookagian, she's in a position where you can knock off so many contenders, and eventually you are going to get another shot at the title. And if she goes out there and beats Fiorot impressively, there's a chance she could be next in line to fight Valentina Shevchenko. I know a lot of people aren't going to want to see it because of what happened in the first fight, but if she continues to win, she will be undeniable for the UFC. And this will be a long win streak if she wins this fight against an impressive prospect and Manon Fiorot. I mean, how could the UFC deny her? And on the other hand, this is kind of, her last chance, her last run, because if she loses this fight, I mean, she's not particularly old, but for the division, 33 years old, I mean, if she doesn't win this fight, and let's say she loses and she gets dominated, chances of fighting for a title in the future are probably not going to happen. And for Fiorot, she's looked incredible. A lot of people think, there's people who say, this is the woman to dethrone Valentina Shevchenko. If she loses, even though she's fighting the best in the division, people are going to start doubting her, and this is the biggest test of her career. So people are going to start wondering, was their assessment of her skill set even accurate? So if you look at the tail of the tape for this fight, Katlyn Chookagian is 18-4. Manon Fiorot is 9-1. Katlyn Chookagian is ranked number 1 in the UFC official rankings. Manon Fiorot is ranked number 7. Chookagian is 33. Fiorot is 32. Chookagian is 5'9". Fiorot is 5'7". Chookagian has a 68-inch reach, and Fiorot has a 66-inch reach. So a slight reach and height advantage for Katlyn Chookagian. So if you look at Manon Fiorot, she has 10 professional fights. She's 9-1. Of those 9 wins, she has 6 wins by knockout and 3 by decision. Her only loss is in her, debut, her MMA debut against Lee McCourt, and she lost this fight via split decision. And outside of that, I mean, she's been winning every fight, and most of them by stoppage. She's been in the UFC for 4 fights. She only entered in the UFC in January of 2021. Her last fight was against Jennifer Maia, who is a decent fighter within the division, and she basically dominated her. I mean, this was the only fight that maybe Fiorot faced a little bit of adversity, but it wasn't very much. Maia got a couple takedowns. Fiorot was able to get right back up. One of them, she even reversed. She got taken down, got to one knee, and then did like a hip toss, ended up on top. And she won in the striking. She won in the grappling. She got some takedowns of her own. And it was pretty much a dominant win. The fight before that against Mayra Bueno Silva, which is another decent fighter within the division, she beat her via unanimous decision. Outside of a couple head kicks she ate in this fight, she dominated the fight 30-27. Both of these fights were 30-27 wins. Before that, Tabitha Ritchie, I mean, she finished her in the second round. She went out there. She outstruck her for an entire round. Second round, she clipped her and just followed up and just barraged her with punches. The referee steps in. And then her UFC debut against Victoria Leonardo, went out there, put on a massively impressive UFC debut. She looked so good in that fight. Side kicks to the body, was just beating her up, just countering her well with a check right hook, and just dominated her in this fight, and eventually gets the finish, hurts her with a head kick, and then swarms her for the finish. So she's got a lot of finishes. You don't typically see women's MMA fighters with a lot of finishes. Of her 9 wins, 6 finishes. You look at Katlyn Chookagian, of her 18 wins, she has 2 by knockout, 1 by submission, and 15 by decision. So Chookagian typically wins by decision. Of her losses, she's lost 2 by knockout and 2 by decision of her 4 losses. She comes into this fight on a 4-fight win streak against legitimate competition. Her last fight was against Amanda Ribas. She won this fight with a combination of just landing better strikes and more powerful strikes, and also mixing in her grappling as well. She had some moments where she got taken down and controlled on the ground, but maybe a minute or so, and then she would work her way back to her feet. And then there was moments where she took Ribas down and controlled her on the ground. And when they were on the feet, Chookagian was just a step ahead, landing the better shots. Before that, she fought Jennifer Maia. Basically, most of Chookagian's performances are interchangeable. She just peppered her from the outside. I think she mixed in a little bit of grappling in this fight. Can't remember for 100% certainty, but just beat her up from range, countered her well, moved her feet. She has great footwork, circling around the cage, and just landed more shots and volume. And she has decent power. She's not a knockout person. She doesn't have knockout power, but she has decent power where she's busting some of these girls up. Before that, Viviane Araujo, which is a solid win, who's still ranked, who has a big fight coming up against Alexa Grasso, well, a semi-big fight within the division. A win over Cynthia Calvillo. I don't know how much that really means anymore. People used to be high on her, but not anymore. And her most recent losses, one is to Jessica Andrade back in October of 2020. This was when Jessica Andrade moved up from strawweight to the flyweight division. And she pretty much dominated her in this fight. Chookagian landed a couple shots, but Jessica Andrade walked her down. She took her down multiple times, and eventually she hurts her to the body and ends up following up and finishing her. Before that was when she got a shot at Valentina Shevchenko off of a 2-fight win streak, which is crazy. It shows you how bad the women's flyweight division is currently, but also was back in 2019. She lost to Valentina Shevchenko. She had an okay showing. She got lit up on the feet. Eventually taken down, beat up on the ground a little bit. The third round, it just looked like she was tired of getting beat up. She gets taken down, immediately gives up the crucifix, and Valentina Shevchenko just starts raining down elbows. And basically, Katlyn Chookagian had nothing to offer, could not get out of the position, and eventually the referee finally steps in and stops the fight. So when I look at this fight, I really think you have two potential outcomes that I think are most likely, and that is Katlyn Chookagian by decision. I could see her winning a decision. And I can also see Manon Fiorot winning by TKO. I really do. I think she's got good power in her hands. She's got a good variety of attacks. I could also see Fiorot winning by decision. Most women's MMA fights, I usually pick the winner by decision. It just seems like, I don't know what the percentage is, but most women's MMA fights seem to end in decision. But I think Fiorot has some good power. So this really comes down to, can Katlyn Chookagian just stay at range and just use her 2-inch reach advantage, use her slight height advantage, and just circle around the cage and just pepper shots on Manon Fiorot? And, when I look at this fight, I see Manon Fiorot, who hasn't fought the best competition. She's fought okay competition. And then I look at Katlyn Chookagian, and she's fought some pretty good competition. They have the opponent in common in Jennifer Maia. And, they both beat her pretty soundly, so I don't really think there's too much you can take away from that. And I don't believe in MMA math anyway. And I think Katlyn Chookagian is a very good fighter. I think she's an elite level fighter for the women's division. And I think Manon Fiorot has looked really good. I believe she's an elite level fighter, but I'm still wondering, just Tabitha Ritchie, Victoria Leonardo. I know the Mayra Bueno Silva win has aged kind of well. I think she's on a 2-fight win streak since then. Jennifer Maia, most of these girls are okay fighters. They're not horrible fighters, but Katlyn Chookagian is clearly a step up from these girls that Manon Fiorot has fought so far. And I kind of flipped back and forth on this fight initially, but after I went back and watched a lot of their recent fights, I am going with Manon Fiorot via second round TKO. I just think she has too many ways to win. Katlyn Chookagian is very well-rounded. Manon Fiorot is very well-rounded. But I think Manon Fiorot is the more technical striker. I think she has more power, and I think she has the better grappling. And most people think of her as this technical striker. She's mixed in grappling very well in some of her past fights. And I think even if Katlyn Chookagian can do her typical Chookagian style and, stay on the outside and circle around the cage and just pump jabs and kick the legs, I think that Manon Fiorot will clinch up with her, bully her against the fence, take her down. And even if Chookagian works her way back up, I think Fiorot will get her down. She has great hip tosses. She has great takedowns. She's improving every fight out. And then on the feet, I think Chookagian can compete on the feet by doing her typical style, but I think Fiorot has better power. So I think it'll be one of those fights where maybe Chookagian lands a little bit more, but Fiorot just is going to be doing more damage. So I think she'll be able to win some rounds that way, and she always has the grappling in her back pocket. And I don't think Chookagian's going to go out there and submit her if she gets taken down. So I think this first round is going to be rather competitive. I think it's going to be like a kind of a chess match on the feet. You know, Chookagian trying to circle, Fiorot trying to press and land power shots. And I think, you know, she's a well-rounded fighter. I think she's going to mix in the clinch. I think she's going to mix in the takedowns. I think she's going to be landing on the feet. And I think this is going to be a fight where she wins the first round, but it's competitive. And I think the second round, we've seen her, you know, in her first 2 UFC fights, get finishes in the second round. She starts getting reads, and I think she's going to be able to track Katlyn Chookagian down, and I think she's going to clip her badly. I'm going to say a body kick is going to hurt her, and then she's going to follow her to the ground and finish her off, because Manon Fiorot has great kicks, and she has a great side kick to the body. You know, we think about side kicks to the body, I immediately think of Tecia Torres. But Manon Fiorot actually has nasty side kicks to the body, impactful side kicks to the body. And she also does a good job of managing the distance with that side kick. And her hands look good. I mean, she has a great variety of attack. She's gone 3 hard rounds, and, you know, the stamina has looked very good. And Chookagian has great stamina, but I just think Manon Fiorot is just a step ahead everywhere. And I think she's going to prove in this fight that she is a legitimate title contender. I think she's going to go out there, beat Katlyn Chookagian up in every aspect of this fight. I think the first round is going to be competitive, but the second round, Manon Fiorot is going to take over. And Fiorot also has amazing leg kicks as well and oblique kicks. I mean, she has some Khalil Roundtree type timing on her oblique kicks, and they're nasty. And I think Chookagian is just going to be circling around, eating some big shots. I think she'll land some shots of her own, but Fiorot will walk through them. And eventually that mix of clinch, grappling, takedowns on Chookagian, because I think Fiorot has the edge, it eventually is going to set up the hands and the kicks. And I think Fiorot is going to find that shot in the second round, hurt her badly, and finish her off with some ground and pound. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.